Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Safe House. I'm Jeff Edwards, co-founder of Safe House Initiative and your host for today's podcast. Enjoy. I am thrilled today to have one of the world's preeminent experts on cybersecurity and AI, Chuck Brooks. Chuck is the co-founder and president of Brooks Consulting and an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. Chuck, welcome to the Safe House.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It is a real honor to have you here. And why don't we do this, since you've never been on the Safe House before? Why don't you introduce yourself? Kind of tell us your journey, how you started, and how you ended up where you are as the one of the world's preeminent experts.
Sure. Well, it's been an eclectic journey, and I'll start actually where I came from, which is in the Chicago area. And I had gone to a small university in Indiana called DePauw University,
Mm-hmm.
DPAUW, not with the L. And then
Yep.
went to the University of Chicago for international relations, where I thought I would be going into strategic studies. I was focusing on national security. And so I came to Washington, D.C. after I graduated. I first actually went to the Hague and Academy of International Law in The Hague in the
Hmm.
Netherlands, because I had also had an interest in law. But I came to Washington like everyone else and said, okay, this is going to be interesting, and maybe I'll work in Congress. Maybe I'll find something interesting, because there's 6,000 associations here. But as fortuitous as it was, I went to a party and I ran into the former deputy director of the CIA and the former head of Defense Intelligence Agency, General Danny Graham.
Huh.
And he was a real fire plug of a guy. He's a real leader. Was close to the Reagan cabinet, and he said, "Would you be interested in working with me?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "What do you want to work on?" And I said, "Well, I'm leading a thing called the Strategic Defense Initiative, which is basically defending uh, the U.S. from intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I
Mm-hmm.
need someone that can help me and write and do stuff. Can you write, etc." And I know I'd studied under this Dr. Albert Wolstetter at Chicago, and he was a friend of Danny's too. So it was a small world. So things had it. I did. I took off. I started writing about that stuff, and it was very exciting. And I got to go to the inner circles all around. I actually got to meet President Reagan at the White House a couple
Yeah.
times too. And then he asked me, "Would you be interested in working in administration?" I said, "Oh, what kid wouldn't want it?" In his early 20s. So I became assistant to the director of Voice of America, and there it was right during the Cold War. It was an exciting place to be. It was
Wow.
information warfare, pre computers,
Yeah.
uh, and it was it was a great run. And then I got called by a U.S. senator one day when I was walking down the halls, and he said, "I've been following you. Would you like to come work with me?" And that was Senator Alan Specter. And this is where I really started my cybersecurity career. It was really pre-cyber. It was more national security technology.
Yeah.
Um, and I ended up being for almost a decade an advisor to him, a staffer on security issues and tech issues, and really learned my way around Washington D.C. And
Wow.
it was very exciting. And it basically it taught me public speaking, it taught me everything else, and I certainly learned the issues. Again, it was almost pre-computer. We had Wangs, but
I did.
then
I did some work with. I worked with Wang for a while.
oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
their
that's cool.
disaster recovery group. Yeah.
Oh, wow, wow. Well, it shows the evolution of technology, how it's happening so quickly. But so my next job, where we did have computers, was Department of Homeland Security. I got called one day and said, "Would you like to be part of a startup?" And I said, "Yeah." "What kind of startup would it be?" "Well, it's a big one." It was Department of Homeland Security,
Yeah.
and I went over there, and this is, I guess, the official start of my career with technology. I got involved. I was at helped the Science and Technology Directorate be created, and became its first legislative director. And I work with all the scientists and it's chemical, biological, rad, nuke, explosives, and in cyber, which was nascent beginning right there. And I
Yeah.
really learned the whole, the whole gamut of how the intersection of national security and technology works, and counterterrorism, all those areas. And particularly what interests me was cybersecurity, because I saw the connectivity growing so quickly with what we're doing and how we're able to use computers for research, etc. And I said, this is where I want to go. And I got deep into it, and then I'll shorten it up because I can go on forever. But I did obviously a private sector career after that with as vice president of Homeland Security for for Xerox, at General Dynamics Mission Systems, was Technology Scout, and the vice president at SRA, which was bought by General Dynamics Information Technology, and then vice president of R&D for Rapiscan, a group that makes basically technologies for airport baggage discoveries. So it was a great run there, and I kept cybersecurity all through it, and particularly in the last few jobs,
Yeah.
as everything has moved towards that, and also artificial intelligence and now quantum have also come into the realm of things, and I've combined that with teaching at Georgetown in cybersecurity risk management for 7 years now, and prior to that, John Hopkins in Homeland Security, and now I'm on my own with, as I said, for Brooks Consulting International, and I go around the world speaking at a lot of conferences and consult on the trends happening now in emerging technologies, which are happening at a lightning pace. I'll shorten it here because I can go on forever.
No, no, that's brilliant, Chuck. It really is. Well, Chuck, with such a vast body of work that you can point to, there's a couple of areas that, in particular, have caught my particular interest that I think it would help our audience dramatically, and that's small mid-sized businesses. And really, could you kind of expound on your interest? It just seems like you have a passion for the small mid-sized business arena and helping them in particular.
Yes, a good question. That really started primarily when I was working at Department of Homeland Security and S&T.
Hmm.
And I discovered very quickly that a lot of the innovation and the great ideas were not coming from, they were coming from labs and big companies, but the real interesting innovations were coming from small startups and businesses,
Hmm.
with people who had a passion for the issue. And, I think they were the engine that fueled innovation. And, I've carried that through in my other work because I've looked at the evolving ecosystem, and, the small business has still been the engine of our economy. And unfortunately, what's happened now is you see that as cybersecurity has evolved, they're unfortunately the last to be protected the way they should be. And there's a lot
Hmm.
of reasons for this because they're small for one, and medium too. I mean, they don't have the
Yeah.
budgets, they don't have the expertise.
Yep.
And now as we move into this new era where they thought they could be obscure and no one's going to bother me, everything connected is a target, and they're being basically targeted because they're parts of supply chains,
Yeah.
parts of important supply chains. And we found this out at DoD and other places a few years ago that the adversaries were deliberately targeting these small businesses that had the technologies and capabilities for two ways: one, to steal their ideas, but the other to disrupt the supply chain and be able to exploit it. So, which is a big problem with cybersecurity all over. So when I look at small and medium business, I say this is where we really need to focus our attention, as governments and private sector, is to reach out and to protect them and to work closely to make sure that in this new era, particularly with AI fueled attacks, that they're not taken out of the business, which 50% of them are when they get hit.
Yeah, and it is really a crime of convenience mostly. So the weakest link is always the easiest to penetrate, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you're a criminal, it's not too much different than a physical crime. You look where someone's most vulnerable and isolated, and that is small and medium businesses.
Yeah, so and it's probably even much more complex from the convergence of IoT, OT. I mean, all these, potential access points is even getting worse. I've seen some of your works on that, and I found that fascinating too. The convergence of all these technologies.
Yeah, the convergence is really thing. And you mentioned IoT, and that's an interesting one because there's 50 billion devices out there that we
Mhm.
know of, we could track at least, and then there's trillions of sensors to those devices, and they're all entry points into the
Mm.
to the networks. And so again, with small and medium businesses, they often have a variety of smartphones or TVs or computers hooked up. It depends what it is, and all those points become target areas. And so with a few years ago, the idea in government, because they're also part of that ecosystem and comprised of large, small, and medium businesses, was to create a zero trust mandate.
Mm.
So you knew whatever was connected to your networks, whether it's people, and whether it's devices. And so no one really had an inventory of it. And we're finding out now with some big breaches. That's how they were initiated. that these endpoints or entries, devices and stuff are just as easy to get to as people. So, with small medium businesses, with large businesses, IoT is an issue. But now going into convergence, I mean, convergence is happening so quickly
Yeah.
that everyone's not prepared for it. We're seeing a variety of technologies, 5G, which is
Hmm.
speeding the delivery of networks. You're seeing a blockchain, which is a ledger system,
Hmm.
but more importantly, you're seeing right now AI in various forms. Now it's been around for a while with robotic process automation, where it did a lot of mundane tasks, and businesses have been using it for a while, and so have call centers and government too, but for small things. And so when Chat GPT broke in a couple years back, it created a sensation with generative AI. And
Mm.
generative AI was fun because it could be adopted by everyone. And initially, it was basically a supercharged search engine,
Yeah.
and it's evolving now more into a search engine with context, or some context at least, not really, based
Yeah.
on these large language models. So I think it's really expanding the way people are learning and understanding and communicating. It's been used heavily for marketing and stuff there. So that's really taking the world by surprise. And then when you're seeing all the money and investment going into it, just then comes along agentic AI. And the difference between generative and agentic is, generative AI, you need prompts and you have to tell it what to do, and it's task oriented. But agentic AI can do many different things at once, and it could
Mm.
basically you're sending out, basically these agents to go collect information collectively and give it to me, give them informed. So they have a much more greater capacity, and you're seeing, many billions now being invested in agentic AI. But again, all these technologies, when I talk about convergence, is that, just like the internet itself, which is not built for security and communication, it was only built for communications. You're seeing the convergence of all these capabilities, but also vulnerabilities. And with that, a lot of the adversaries are using these technologies, particularly generative AI, to create amazing phishing attacks that look exactly right like your employer, or Amazon or whatever, using deep fakes. Then they're using it to instead of sending out 100 manually, they're automating these attacks with AI to send out to thousands. And then they're
Yeah.
looking for vulnerabilities in the networks that discovered by AI. So all of that is to their advantage because it's asymmetrical between the bad guys, the adversaries who are hacking, because they know where they're going and they only have to get lucky once. And out
Yeah.
of thousands try, and the defenders, because you have to have the tools and the capabilities and the talent to be able to defend yourself in this kind of environment.
So when you talk to small, mid-sized businesses and you start to advise them, where do you usually start, or you kind of assess where they are on their journey? Because I would imagine that they're somewhere on the continuum, whether they're just starting or they're somewhere halfway between. What do you find usually when you start to talk to these folks that seek your help?
Yeah, no, I mean, it really comes down to them. First of all, most of them don't have a clue. They don't understand
Uh,
what the environment is, where the threats are, why they need it. A lot of larger corporations didn't understand until recently, until they got hacked. But
yeah.
so I first started, I said, this is really a question of risk management and your
Hmm.
viability as a company, whatever you're doing, you're producing or manufacturing or a service.
Yeah.
Because if you're attacked and corrupted, first of all, you can't do your business, and second of all, it'll just damage your reputation, and third
Yep.
of all, it costs you money. You go
Yep.
out of business. So I get that message up front, and I say, okay, let's do this in increments. And first, let's get a vulnerability status of where your network's exposed,
Hmm.
what employees have privileges,
Hmm.
do you have your data segmented, your important stuff, do you have it backed up, all the basics, and then you go into the cybersecurity hygiene too. You should have multi-factor authentication. If you don't, because it reduces your the ability of the hackers. They have to be more sophisticated to get through MFA.
Yeah.
And then you have to, have all the basic, the routers, everything, all the basic stuff. And it's not costly, but most of them don't have any understanding of that. And
Hmm.
the second part of it is that, despite all you may do, you may get hit, and you need to have a incident response plan and have
Right.
resilience. You have to have your C-suite integrated into it, your key people being able to react, You have to have a plan if something goes down, what you can do. Do you have, where your backups can take off? Are you in the cloud? And that's another
Right.
thing I recommend. A lot of the small, medium businesses just don't have the facilities or capabilities to do stuff on-prem. So
Yeah.
sometimes the cloud's easier for them. And I see a
Yeah.
lot of them going that way. And the second part is that there's a lot of managed service providers out there that some do a very good job that'll do this for the small medium business as a basically a consultant. And I don't recommend any specific ones, but there are a lot of them. They do some basic due diligence in their area. They'll get some capable people, and because IT shops can't do it alone, and many of these businesses don't even have a person with IT. So I think those combination of those things is really what you start at the bottom. It's all risk management.
So with the shifting budgets, I'll just leave it at that, with the federal government and more of a push to have a more of a federal, maybe a commercial cyber enterprise of sorts, a closer working relationship. How does that impact like the small, mid-sized businesses? Just curious.
Well, it's impacting probably initially in a bad way because a lot of the grant funding and other things they were depending upon government,
Yeah.
some of them. But in reality, if you look at a model, let's take the CMMC, which is
Yeah.
basically DoD's qualifications for any vendor, small, medium, and large, to do business at DoD.
Yeah.
It's really important for them to be able to take their own destinies. So, it's not all bad. I mean, it's important. I mean, like I said, those things I just mentioned, what you can do with cyber hygiene and segmentation and basic protections and cloud, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to do that. And they need to really understand that it's not basically just a operational item anymore. Your security is your viability as a company. And so if you prioritize security, just like you would not leave your doors open if you have a lot of products sitting in a store, you have to do the same thing with the internet. And I think more companies and smaller media are starting to understand this. So I think they're moving towards that. And I think the self-sufficiency is a good thing
Yeah.
because uh, the technologies that are expanding, government can't protect you. They can protect some critical infrastructure. They're trying to protect more, but they can't. They can't do it. And state and local is behind. I mean, they're almost as vulnerable as most small and medium businesses. They just don't have the resources, capabilities, and they're playing catch up too. So
Right.
you need to, as a small business, go out and do your homework, understand what risk management is. Go to NIST. Go
Yeah.
look at what their recommendations are for risk management for depending what kind of business you are. Talk to your other neighbors in business. Find out who they're using. Explore managed services. All that I think is almost a prerequisite before you even open your doors nowadays.
Yeah, and sometimes going through like the CMMC, for instance, or looking at the NIST controls things, it helps you to, whether you implement all of them, at least gives you kind of a guidepost in which to work from. And if you tighten up some of those that would qualify you for CMMC, even though you may not be going for government contracts, it would put you in a much better shape. Is that a good read on that, Chuck?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's also because the environment has changed so quickly in the digital world that this is a great resource, but CMMC is a new thing, and when I've gone through it a few times, and what they recommend, what they do, are really things that you should be doing anyway. So I
Yeah.
think anyone
Yeah.
as a small medium business should be looking at CMC, even if they don't apply for it. But it doesn't. They don't have to be a DoD vendor. They just have to be a small business, and follow. Gain the knowledge. The good thing about cyber is that there's plenty out there and resources out there. It's not something that's in the dark like quantum physics can be. But you don't have to be a physicist to this. You can understand the basics. There's a
Yeah.
lot of helpers out there. You can go on the LinkedIn and join a
Yeah.
couple groups, and you'll find out stuff left and right. It's just really a question of absorbing and learning and looking where the parameters are for your own business of what you need to protect, whether it's your supply chain,
Yeah.
whether it's your network for communications, your employees. All these things are fairly easy to do once you understand it.
So in a way, if I hear this correctly, it's almost a triage moment. So if you happen to be going for a federal contract, and you have to do the CMMC, to certify, or if you're going through maybe a SOC 2, or you're going through, I mean, just whatever you're going through, maybe a third-party risk management evaluation to do business with a larger company. Maybe just take those moments to say, embrace it and lean into those, and use that as your starting point potentially.
I think that's great advice. I mean, the best way to understand something is to learn about it.
Hmm.
And and there's a lot, like I said, there's a wealth of information available on it, and there's also people that will assist you that are a lot of people in the community, volunteer, particularly with small businesses and medium businesses, to give them some insights and help them. But a lot of it they can do on their own. I mean, the value of the internet itself is that it's a resource of information, and you can do your own research more now than ever. So I
Yeah.
think it's something that they can do themselves.
It's funny, Chuck, when we first started the Safe House Initiative about 3 years ago, it was in conversations with the insurance industry. And they said the problem we have is education. And the problem with the internet is, well, the good news about the internet is there's a lot out there, but the problem is there's a lot out there. And
There's a
usually
lot of
it's,
yeah.
it is right. So, we took on the initiative to start to curate and say, okay, let's take out all the marketing and all the fluff and stuff like that, and just get to some good advice. And so having guests like yourself on with us really helps kind of just hone in on some things you could do today that are practical.
That's perfect. I mean, you're the clearinghouse then for this, which is really important.
Huh.
There are associations and things too, but this is really important. I think that information needs to be available and distributed. But again, it's not an insurmountable task. It's something that can be done, like you said, with understanding what the threats are is half of it. If you understand the threats and where you're vulnerable most, you can protect yourself. And again, most of these breaches still go back to phishing attacks. Despite all these years of all these different things, phishing attacks are still the cause of breaches in business, email compromise, and everything else. It's just now that they're more sophisticated because they can mimic almost anything, and including voices and people. So I think the phishing part is really probably the focus point that if you could tell any small medium businesses, just learn how to discover what a fish is, and better than that, not that assume everything is, and just have make sure that you don't, and if you're using your financial data on one computer, make sure it's not connected to another computer where that could get corrupted. So I think you need to isolate your data, and I think you need to look at a variety of programs that they can maybe protect you, including antivirus. Everything you can do, you should do it.
Yeah, and that's where AI is driving the phishing. Even it's harder to determine what is and what's real and what's not real, right?
It's really getting difficult because the logos are perfect. 20 years ago, it used to be some prince somewhere in a far off land. You won the lottery, or you're in the will. Somehow you're in the will. But now you get it from you could. They're so sophisticated. They look you up on your social media,
Yeah,
and they say, "Oh, you work for this company. Who's the CFO?
yeah.
Okay, let's go there. Let's get a message from the CFO saying that there's been a problem with their 401k and they need to log in immediately to do something." They do that, and so you really have to be vigilant because there's too many different things they can do to corrupt you. I mean, even the emails they can mask those. That looks
Yeah.
like you're. Yeah, so it's really a dangerous area out there with the fishing.
So really, AI is really exploiting the weakest link in any organization. It's not technology. It's really the people.
It's the people, right? It is, it's it's social engineering with the AI tools,
Yeah.
and it allows them to basically, cultivate backgrounds on people, know exactly, where they travel, what they work, what they do, and just like marketers do when you go in a thing, and then they use it against you.
And every journey starts with that first step. And no matter where you are in this continuum with, as a small, mid-sized business and you're running it, if you were, and this is something I ask all of our guests, Chuck, is if they had one thing they could do today to improve their cybersecurity or just their overall risk management profile, what would that one step be that they could do today?
Well, that's a tough one because there's so many things they need to do. But if it
Yeah,
would be one thing, I would think that the strongest thing that you have going right now is an individual or a small company is multi-factor authentication.
yeah,
Just because it makes it a lot more difficult for amateurs, and not all hackers out there are top notch. I mean, the state sponsored and these groups that they work under are very good, but they're likely not to be wasting time. They already have plenty of targets. So if you have MFA and you have it maybe even with a biometric, you're
yeah.
going a long way to protecting yourself. You're not invulnerable because you can get around it, but you're less likely to be a target. And really, that's the whole thing. You just want to make yourself uh, not the low hanging fruit. You want to make sure, that you don't have a password that says 1 2 3, and then you're not real visible in certain areas where they may be looking. But just MFA is a basic thing. I think that at least protects our identities to some degree.
I'll tell you, Chuck, I'd love to continue this conversation, but it could go on forever. But I was wondering, would you be open to coming back to join us for several other, because we would love to have you coming back and
Oh,
talk about
absolutely,
so many other things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of our third season. Hard to imagine it's been that we've on our third season, but part of this year we're talking about how important small mid-sized businesses are in the critical infrastructure, and also about how the government and the collaboration with commercial entities needs to improve, and how that can be done. So it's kind of a two themes that we're going to run throughout this year. So I would love to have you come back and chat with us some more
Absolutely.
about, because I mean, you make it so understandable, Chuck.
Well, that's what I tried to do, because I think that actually comes from my work at S&T too, because I was dealing with these scientists, a lot of them that were in these small lanes where they only talk to each other, and how do you translate that to a congressman? How do you tell them what you're doing? And so I learned that technology, you don't need to be a PhD in everything, but you need to understand and learn and be able to communicate. And that's what I've tried to do. And that's why I did a book recently on that too, because I think a lot of the basic stuff you can understand. You don't
Yeah.
have to get into the electrical engineering or the quantum physics of things, but you could look at basically how things operate and where the threats are, and what you need to do to stop those threats. And that's what I try to do is make it so everyone could utilize that information.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chuck, you're going to help a lot of people with your practical expert advice. And on behalf of the Safe House Initiative and all of our or of our listeners, thank you ever so much. And we look forward to having you come back.
It's my pleasure being on the program, and I look forward to coming back. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's our episode. We greatly appreciate you joining us and hope it was a wonderful learning experience. I'm your host, Jeff Edwards, and remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more educational materials, please visit us at safehouseinitiative.org. All materials are free from tracking, promotions, memberships, or fees of any kind. Safe House Initiative is an all-volunteer organization.